pronunciation lesson. Grammar is the bones, the skeleton of English. But for me, it's correct. But for me, pronunciation is the skin and flesh of the English language, because a lot of us tend to neglect it, but people will not know how skillful you are in English. They will not actually know how vast your grammar is, how good your vocabulary is, unless they listen to the way you talk. So if they hear you say, "Oh, how are you?" and they will say, "Oh, I'm fine," and they think like, "Oh, that is not correct. His English is, or her English is so. She said I'm fine, not I'm fine." So the pronunciation part plays a very integral part of communicating as well, because if other people cannot understand you or does not know what you're saying, there is no communication. So we have to somehow pay extra attention to the pronunciation of the word. So today we are going to learn the pronunciation of verbs in the past, but this time we are going to focus on regular verbs. I'm going to write it down. Regular verbs. You know verbs already, correct? We did that. But there are two kinds of verbs. One is regular verbs and the other one is irregular verbs. But today we are going to focus on regular verbs. I do not have my whiteboard and it's not that big, so I'm using an iPad, which is okay, I guess. So regular verbs. What is a regular verb? What is the difference between regular verbs and irregular verbs? Yes, regular verbs, I really look like I'm talking to students. It's actually not. Regular verbs are verbs ending in ed. Yes, they are ending in ed. So we call that ed endings. All verbs that are regular, we can distinguish it from irregular verbs, because irregular verbs, we change meaning, we change the spelling, we change the pronunciation, or sometimes it doesn't change, or just stay the same. Just like let. We cannot say let, right? Or the word broadcast. We cannot say broadcasted, but it is the same. It doesn't change. But with regular verbs, there are words, common verbs that we know, that you already know, and that you do from time to time, every day. But the thing is, when you change it to the past form, you just have to add ed to that. So ed has only one spelling, but the sound changes. It has actually 3 sounds. Oh yeah, I got confused. 3 sounds. One spelling, but 3 sounds. One is t. Can everybody say t? Very good. Loud sound, right? Loud. Plosive, we call that plosive. T, t. Yes, that's one. Second sound is d, d. Can everybody say it? D, d. The difference between these 2 sounds is very small, very tiny. T sound is unvoiced. One more time. T sound is unvoiced. Unvoiced, what does that unvoiced means? What does it mean? Unvoiced means, yes, there is no, if you're going to feel your throat, there is no vibration there. So if you try to touch your throat with your hand or with your 2 fingers and produce T sound, can you do it? T, t. Is it moving? One more time. T, t. It's not moving, right? If it is not moving, it's called unvoiced. If it is moving, then we call that voiced sound. Voiced, it's moving. Unvoiced, or sometimes they call it voiceless, it's not moving. That is very important. So again, if you're going to, the difference between T and D sound, if you touch your throat and there is vibration, that is a voiced sound. If there is no vibration and you touch your throat when you produce the sound, that is voiceless or unvoiced. So that's a difference between t, t and d, d. Got it? Because when you say d, d, it comes from your throat, and that's why it's moving here. And the last sound is id. Can everybody say id? Id. Wonderful. So there is a vowel. There's a vowel sound and d sound. So id, id. Got it? Now, when do we say that the regular verb has a t ending? The ed spelling, is sound as t, is sounded as t, d, or id. When do we know that? As I have mentioned before, pretty easy. If it is voiced, it is t. If the last sound is voiced, then the sound is t. Ed sound is t. If it is unvoiced, the last sound, the last consonant sound, or the last sound of the verb is voiced, then it is d sound. I will give you an example because it's very different to just say it. First example is, can everybody say wash? Great. I underlined SH. I underlined SH because that is the last sound of the word wash. That's the last sound. So if you're going to produce sh sound, can everybody say sh sound? Sh. Wonderful. One more time. Sh. And you touch your throat. Sh. Is it moving or not? It's not moving. Therefore, if you add ed to the word wash, ed is not pronounced as washed. It's not pronounced as washed. It is pronounced as t, washed. Can everybody say it? Washed. See? Very easy. Next one, another example. I will underline it again. What's the last sound? S sound. Can everybody say pass? Feel your throat. Pass. Is it moving or not? It's not moving. So, what are we going to do? Change ed to? Again, it is a regular verb, so if you change ed, if you change it to ed, if you add ed, make it into a past verb, it sounds past. Okay, now you're getting it. So words, regular verbs that ends with voiceless sound, ed becomes t. voiceless sound are I'm writing it down. S, k, ch. Oh. S sound, K sound, CH sound, SH sound. So any verbs that ends with these sounds, ED becomes T sound. Got it? Okay, wonderful. Let's move on to the next one. ED endings becomes D sound when the last sound of the verb, of the regular verb, is voiced. Wonderful. It is voiced ending. ED becomes D unless it is voiced ending. So I'm gonna think of an example. Claim. Example, claim. I'm going to underline the last sound. What is the last sound? Can everybody say sound? Is it moving or not? Definitely it's moving. So if you change claim to the past form, you just have to add ed, right? So ed doesn't change spelling. Ed becomes, you got it. Everybody say claimed. Can you say it? Claimed. Another example. Plan. Plan. I plan to travel to other countries after COVID. Plan. But that was just a plan. That's a noun form. Now, plan is canceled. Plan, the word that I used, another word that I used was cancel. Always take note of the last sound in its base form, the last sound in its base form of that regular verb, and check whether it is ending with L or, ending with voiced or non-voiced or unvoiced, because that is where you get your clue. And if you're going to change it to the past and you add ed to it, that's all depends, because T itself is unvoiced, D itself is voiced. That's why we pair them together. Got it? Can everybody say planned? Canceled. Canceled. You cannot say canceled. It's different. So let's go to the last one. When does ed becomes id? When? Easy. I think you have the clue already. There are only two endings except for T and D. That's it. If the regular verb ends with a T sound or a D sound, not the spelling. Why the spelling? Ed becomes id, and you add another syllable, and you add one vowel sound to it. I do not know what my forehead is red. And you add another sound to it, which is one syllable. Got it? Ta-da! Now, give me an example. I only have 2 examples in my head right now. These 2 are very important words nowadays. it ends with a T sound, and it ends with another one ends with a D sound. I'll change the color. Ta-da! See, as I have said before, if these two letters and sound is found at the end of the regular verb, then if you add ed to it, the sound becomes id, and you have to add another syllable to it. So want, how many syllables does it have? One, right? Want. Only one syllable. But if you're going to add ed to that, it becomes correct. 2 syllables. It becomes wanted. Wanted. Or American style, wanted. And the other one is need. How many syllables? Correct. Only 1 syllable. But if you're going to add ed to it, how many syllables does it have now? You still need? Yes, 2 syllables. These are only 2 exceptions of for ed endings, T sound and D sound, and then you can change it to id sound. So that's it. I hope you won't forget that there are only 3 sounds in ed endings. Ed endings doesn't change the spelling, but it changes the sound. If the regular verb ends with a voiced sound, if the regular verb ends with a voiceless sound or unvoiced sound, the ed becomes t. If it ends with a voiced sound, the ed becomes d. And if the regular verb ends with a T or a D sound, ed becomes id. Well done. I hope you practice.